Hey guys, Dr. Hall back again because I have to make up for my time from yesterday. So, again, continuing to relate back to what teachers asked yesterday. Yesterday, the question was a teacher shared actually when we talked about activators and we did that assignment in the anchor charts that she had a phenomenal lesson in phenomenal activators. And she said, my question is, how come students in these engaging lessons aren't retaining the information? And so, what I stress about that is how important that lesson objective is. Guys, what's happened is we have all these lesson plans and all these forms and everything to fill out and turn in and a checklist, and people have lost sight of the importance as to why those things are in place in the first place. And so it just became a checklist instead of what we really need to be doing for kids. And so, I am a weirdo. I keep all my stuff. And so, again, going to refer you back to this book because there's lots of great strategies in there about how to get kids to retain information, especially students in poverty. And since we're in a Title I school, we want to keep that in mind. And as a state in South Carolina, we know right now across the state, students in low socioeconomic statuses are underperforming our non-low socioeconomic status students. So I do, of course, keep all of my stuff. And so when I taught AP Psych, and I shared this yesterday, I'm that one. So I had all my little essential questions and objectives in these little paper protectors, and I would put them up on the board for whoever was coming in to observe me. Now I will say you can tell it's kind of tiny. So this wasn't really for the kids. This was for the observers. So my objectives would be at the front of my PowerPoint or whatever I was doing for direct instruction. And then I also shared with you all that at the beginning of every year, I already had, or every semester, I had all of my essential questions in one packet. I've shared that with you all through email. And so the students knew per unit that these are all the questions she wants me to be able to answer at the end. And I actually checked their notebooks for those questions and that they answered them. Again, a great way to keep kids focused on the learning and the objective is using Cornell Notes. I hated it when I was in Myrtle Beach and they forced us to use them with kids. It drove me nuts. But actually what I found is that it was really pretty successful with students. And so it's a homemade, already made, study guide, because on one side, they can fold the paper. One side could be questions and then answers. So essential questions and the answers to review for test. At that bottom, you're getting the summary of the lesson. And so you can see that they've really retained it or not. So really build in those types of things and make sure that you are referring back the entire time. If you just have a say it and get it one time, it's not going to happen. Constantly be going back to that objective. But also remember, less is more. So this objective, this is the essential question. I can pull the objective in a minute. I'm going to try not to stumble. See, Miss Heist told me to have my papers ready, and I'm not ready. Let me see. Okay, so two things. So I have the essential question, because I think kids can show you better or display it, whatever the learning objective is, in a question format. That's just how they're used to answering. I think just having an objective in a sentence format is not as powerful for kids. Now, I do have the objective. So the question was, how do principles of classical conditioning work to create learning? Dude, this is from AP Psychology, guys, seniors. Simple. Less is more. The objective was describe the elements of classical conditioning. Now, it's going to be broken down into other things because the kids also had to apply classical conditioning to different situations. And so that's also going to be something that you need to be mindful of when you break down the standard to create your essential questions and your objectives. But also be very particular in the academic vocabulary. Make sure that you take the time to break it down and that you're not assuming that they know or that they came in with that background information. Kind of jumping off of that, make sure that you're pre-assessing students. If you'll be shocked, I remember I had to teach neurological basis, and I thought that would be my most difficult unit. But what it turns out is most of my kids had just went through biology, and the teacher had already covered it in biology. So my kids had a huge background, like hippocampus. They already knew that. So I didn't have to cover that to the level I really thought that was going to be my most difficult unit. So pre-assess to get an awareness of where the kids are with the academic vocabulary. We use the word infer a lot in English, but are we assuming that they know what infer means? Make sure that you have discussed and dissected those things with the kids. Also practice. When I say practice, the assignments, the assessments, all of those things have to be aligned back to that objective. Don't just throw random things in there. It confuses the kids. So, for example, I'm using lots of examples because I was a K-12 coordinator. So in 5th grade, they have to know in social studies about cowboys. They have to know that there were African-American cowboys. And it's a very small part of the standard. So, but that's quick and move on. But now if you spend a whole lesson on focusing on cowboys in the West, they're going to think that's a big part of what they need to know for their assessment. And you've misaligned the children. The children haven't done it. So just make sure that the practice that they're getting is aligned to the standards, which are aligned to the objectives, and very explicitly teach these things to the kids. So don't assume that they know that when you do a gallery walk that this is what you're going to get from it. Like, you have to show them. Or if you want them to correct a rough draft, then you take a rough draft and have it up on the board and you walk through with them. Okay, guys, here's a rough draft of an assignment, a text-dependent analysis. Let's make it better. How can we do that? How can we use word choice to make it better? Let's do this as a class. And then do that and model it for the students, and then set them free to then again practice related to the standard. Let's say it has the objective, it has something to do with word choice, then it's all connected. It all has to be connected and relevant to the students. Also, I really encourage you, I know you've heard literacy a lot. I'm going over my 5 minutes. I'm sorry, but I really just need just a little bit more time. Remember how I told you I'm bad with closure? I really am bad with closure. So anyways, reading, writing, and thinking. So allow the kids the time. If they've done all this engaging work, hopefully part of your engaging work is them reading and writing through that engagement as well. But if you haven't left room for that and it's just a lot of hands-on and manipulatives, then at the end, they do need to close back out with a writing assignment or a reading assignment, because guys, they've got to transfer it. And when we're talking about this book again, one of the things that it talks about is that children from low socioeconomic statuses have very difficult times with auditory and language, or they come in with language and auditory deficits. So if you don't give them the opportunity to read and write more, those deficits will get bigger and bigger as they go on through secondary schools, okay? Again, I already talked about modeling and scaffolding. Remember, less is more with these objectives. Be very precise, be very explicit, and don't assume that they know anything. Make sure that you are walking through the steps, like study skills. If you have kids not performing well on an assessment, tell them how to study. Give them the skills as to how to study. I have parents who come in here, guys, and they say to me, I can't help my child study because I didn't know how to study. So it's not new. These things have always existed, but what we have to do is find a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. So just a couple more things about how to get kids not only engaged, but to make sure that they retain through that engagement. Focus on the objective over and over and over again. Give them the opportunity to read and write about it at the end, okay? Sum it up with that closure. Come back to it. So I'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.